Chris, Olivia, hey, congratulations for this documentary, The Last Mountain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This must be a really tough documentary to do, especially as a follow-up to Alison's Last Mountain. Can you tell me how you guys managed to gather your own strength to to do another film like this?
Do you want to go or should I go?
Chris, you go.
Yeah, I mean, it was about gathering strength, really. The first film, which I made back in 1995, was challenging enough. But what it gave me was an extraordinary relationship with this amazing family, the Ballards, particularly Tom and Kate, who were then just children, 6 and 4 years old. But it, I'd almost become part of the family, and that's the way it's been ever since. So I carried on being with them, spending time with them, particularly Tom. I used to go into the mountains with him. We used to run together. He was like the son I never had in a way. And Kate similarly. And it was always my intention to make a film about Tom and Kate, which I was going to call Children of the Mountains. And it was going to be a very adventurous and beautiful film about their relationship with the mountains, and finishing with Tom climbing K2. It was his ambition to climb the mountain who claimed his mother. And that was always in my mind and always in their mind. And that's why I kept filming with them. But then tragically, life didn't follow the script. And so we were faced with the prospect of, do we just shelve everything I'd done over 25 years? Or go ahead and make a film with a very different ending. And with the family's blessing and with Olivia's support, we pushed on and made the film, partly very much as a tribute to Tom, of course.
And I think there are some films, that I think this is certainly a film that Chris and I had never forgotten. There are some films that you make that, just stay with you, and that you do continue a relationship with the people who've been in them because you've been through something so, meaningful and extraordinary together. And so this certainly was, you can't make a film like Alison's Last Mountain and then sort of forget about it.
So how did you approach the Ballard family, to do this as a tribute? This must have been really tough on them because, one film has already been made about a tragedy. Now you're asking to do another one. Yeah.
Well, it was because the Ballard family already were making a film with me. I was making a film with them about Tom and Kate's careers as creatures of the mountain. I mean, Kate's a supreme snowboarder and Tom a supreme climber. And so it was already in the process of being made. And I think it was then very much up to Jim and Kate, who were left, to make the decision as to whether we proceed with the film. I was in two minds. Part of me wanted to give up and put it to one side. But then, having spoken to Jim and Kate, we decided that the right thing to do by Tom was to make the film. Not as a eulogy, not as a sort of it wasn't an unquestioning film about, it could have just been a straightforward tribute to a extraordinary talent, but there was edge to the story. There were questions to be asked, and that's the way I think Tom would have liked it to be, hopefully a fairly honest film, asking some quite difficult questions, and that's what we've done.
Absolutely. And so you approach with you had to approach with new interviews and new footages for a documentary like this. Was that an easy process?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I lost it.
I said you had to approach with new interviews and new footages for a film like this. Was that an easy process?
To do the interviews with?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. No, it was very hard. I mean, because partly I think because I wasn't an objective, or at least I wasn't a stranger to the story. I was emotionally affected myself, and I had to deal with that in the best way I could, because I love Tom, and so I had my own grief to deal with as well, and I had to decide how to play that. Partly it helped me, partly it got in the way, but I had to sit down and ask some very difficult questions, and to do some very painful interviews, both with Jim and Kate. But I think that the relationship was such that they allowed me to ask those questions. It wasn't easy.
And not least also because there was a global pandemic going on at the time, and so Chris was, trying to get in and out of places as drawbridges were being lifted up, weren't they? Because you were trying to sort of get through all of the quarantines, and that added also, I think, quite a lot of difficulty and stress.
It did, but also at first, I think we felt we could make this film a bit like Alison's Last Mountain, just concentrating on Kate and Jim. But then it soon became apparent that no, the story took us into deeper waters emotionally. So we needed to talk to Tom's girlfriend, Stefania, and to others in his team who I managed to track down eventually. And I travelled to Italy, to Turkey, to Spain, to talk to get other voices to reinforce the story in a way.
So with these other voices, outside the Ballard family, were they easy to convince too?
No, I think no, it wasn't difficult. I think Stefania, the girlfriend, I think she needed a bit of time to process her own grief, and so it was a long time, wasn't it, Olivia, before we actually got out to see Stefania. But once there, she was very keen to tell her side of the story. She's an incredible young woman, and gave some startling interviews, I think. But in the same way, I tracked down Karim, who was one of the team who had been with Tom, and gave us a very, very important and valuable insight into Tom's state of mind on Nanga Parbat before he perished. But also Alex Chikon, who was the guy, the mountaineer who went out to try and launch a rescue to find Daniele and Tom. He was there, and I tracked him down in Spain. He's an amazing mountaineer in his own right. And he gave us yet another angle. I think we've approached the story from different angles, with different insights, and we've done our best to kind of amalgamate them to give a fuller narrative.
Tell me about retracing, Tom's steps into Nanga Parbat itself. Did you guys have to travel there to get new footage?
Well, Chris, of course, went with Kate when she, went back to Nanga Parbat base camp to say her farewells to Tom. But I suppose one of the things that was sort of extraordinary about this film was the footage that we managed to get, which was the Tom and Daniele's footage of their expedition. And so it gave us a very kind of clear picture of what had been going on that final ascent, really. Which so is quite unique in a sense to be able to, show it in that detail. But yes, obviously Chris did a lot of, special filming as well when he went with Kate to Nanga Parbat.
It was extraordinary, as you say. You phrase it exactly rightly. It was following in his footsteps, almost literally. We went in exactly the same. I noticed when part of the way we were on the back of a pickup truck. I noticed from Tom's own footage that we were on the same truck that Tom had gone out on. It was exactly the same truck. Kate was standing in exactly the same position as her brother had been, some months before, and then proceeding up the valley and across the glaciers into Nanga Parbat itself. The only difference being that we were there in the spring, Tom was there in the winter. So he would have had a much harder time than we had. Having said that, it was, it was still hard. That was a very unforgiving part of the world, or is a very unforgiving part of the world. So, and I think Kate in particular, me less so, but perhaps inevitably Kate felt the presence of her brother spiritually, which added to the challenge for her, the emotional challenge, as well as the physical challenge. But ultimately it gave her strength as well to feel. I think she really did find the strength when we eventually got to Nanga Parbat, and she was imbued with the sense of Tom being there, because Tom still is there. He will never be recovered, just like his mother will never be recovered.
So how does Kate get that sense of a closure with something like this?
I think she says in the film, I just wanted to be in the same place as Tom. I wanted to understand what it was that he saw here and what attracted him to this place. And I wanted to see where he lies and will lie forever. And I think that was part of, Kate doesn't like the word closure because she doesn't want, in a way, I think people who've lost somebody, you don't want to not ever stop grieving. It's part of the fabric of your life from there on in. It's part of the way we need a sense of loss to keep us close to the people we're missing. And I think she just had to come to terms with the fact that she will be grieving forever, but importantly, with living a life that she needs to now, find a new way forward herself without her beloved brother. And I think she always needed permission from Tom to get on with her life, if that makes sense. And she got that at Nanga Parbat base camp.
And I think she says very poignantly in the film, doesn't she? I know where he is. I know where my mother is, and she likes to think of them now together in those mountains, and that having been there and been in that atmosphere, I think it just gave her a sort of reassurance in a way, and now made her feel that she can, keep them in her heart and go forward.
Yes, and she loves to think about them together. She part of the way she's processing all of this is to think of Alison now cradling Tom, and I think that gives her great comfort.
Through your filming, with both films, what's your opinion on why they do this? I mean, a lot of people. I've seen a lot of documentaries like this, and most of them, it's a numbers game. Most of them do not end well.
It is a numbers game, and absolutely. And Tom knew that. I think, but Tom, I knew Tom very well, and I knew about his relationship with mountains. He was very respectful of mountains. He never liked to talk about conquering them. He never would conquer a mountain. You had to commune with a mountain. You had to ask permission of a mountain to climb it. If it doesn't want you to climb it, it'll let you know. And so he'd be a fantastic climber, but not a reckless one. But he always used to climb solo. It was perhaps significant that on his last climb, he wasn't climbing solo. He wasn't making all the decisions himself. That's not to cast undue blame on Daniele. They made the decisions together. But I think in terms of why both those guys did what they did, it was to challenge themselves. To I think it's a process of seeing what you're made of. My own view is that we need people like that. We need mountaineers, not because they climb mountains, but because they show us what the human spirit's made of, and that's why we make great medical discoveries, why we land men on the moon. It's that inner energy, which I think is epitomized by the high altitude climber. We need climbers.
Well, we also need documentarians just like yourselves to tell their stories. So that's also very important. Let's not forget. Chris, Olivia, let me wrap it up with one more question. Is as people get the chance to watch your documentary, The Last Mountain, what is the one most important take that you hope that they walk away with?
Well, for me, it is that life goes on. That, you know, the one thing, we're not all mountaineers, but we all of us have to deal with grief at one time or another in our lives. We will all lose loved ones, and I think that the film helps us to understand the nature of grief and the way we can deal with it, process it, and actually grow from it. And I think that's what we see ultimately Kate doing. She was traumatized and, you know, poleaxed by the loss of her brother and her mother. But I think at the end, when she says, "Dad and I'll get through this together," and for me, one of the most poignant parts of the film is when she and her dad hug together at the very end of the film. And for me, that is the hope that we all need, you know, and the encouragement to move on with this very difficult thing we call life.
And I would just add to that, I think it's also a powerful lesson in the need to live an authentic life doing what you love.
Yeah.
Even if there are some risks attached to that.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Chris, Olivia, thank you very much for speaking to us about The Last Mountain. Hopefully we don't have to talk about next time with another, you know, tragic documentary. Hopefully it'll be a happy documentary next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.